You're watching KTV Channel 7 Omaha. More complete coverage.
It's a closer race than in 2001.
Jim Suttle's campaign is gathered tonight at the Omaha Firefighters Union Hall.
Or you should try as a journalist to be as objective as you possibly can.
What is it that would impact maybe the most people?
The I-80-680 interchange is reopened after being closed for several hours this afternoon.
News is what's happening now. It's not what happened 24 hours ago.
What is a story that the most people really need to know about?
Now, with the election over, it's time to get ready for the task at hand.
You're going out there and you're looking for this nice balance of stories that will interest people and inform and entertain.
And those are the stories that you need to include in your newscast.
Once again, this is just a rehash of the 5 that these guys were busted in an elaborate growing scheme.
But it'd be a good visual. And they were going to put some of that video on the feed, which is sort of interesting.
Good story. Talked with the COO of the whole shebang.
It wasn't intentional. She wasn't drunk. It was just she ran a red light, wasn't paying attention, talking to friends, and
they don't think she's going to make it.
So you get this big pot of stories that come in from all sources. And then you start making determinations. Obviously, you can't cover it all. And you look at it, is it interesting? Is it important? Does it have long-term ramifications? Does it tie back to something else that's going on in the news today? There are just a number of things that really you can apply on a very concrete basis. You can have a list if you wanted to, but generally speaking, I think most reporters, most assignment editors in their head just go through that mental checklist.
80 is closed at 680
southbound east. We'll have to stay tuned on this interstate thing, see if this gets off.
On any given day, we may all agree on what the big story is because it's so obvious. But on another day, we might all disagree. But the point is that we all bring some things to the table, and it affects how we cover a story or even who you choose to get an interview with. And that, in and of itself, can be the thing that really takes a story in one direction or another.
So not leaving the money in the drawer, is that a new something since the break-ins?
680 Bend is still closed for another 15 minutes.
We still, do the accidents and the fires and the crimes, That's kind of the bread and butter. I mean, it's local news, and so it's got to be done. But it's nice to be able to do stories that you can develop a little bit more, too.
I think a lot of that comes back to the philosophy of the station itself. Maybe they have a philosophy that begins with the station manager or the news director and works its way down, or the consultant might be involved in that decision making. Often it's not verbalized. Yeah, sometimes it is, but often it's not. It's just a feeling that those within the news department have of this is the kind of station we are.
Yeah, last night was the election for city council seats in Omaha Mayor.
I know that the day after that city election, we will see coverage of the results from overnight.
The lead story today is the Jim Suttle, his transition into office as Omaha Mayor over the next 26 days.
But this afternoon's angle, and maybe even by 10 o'clock still the angle will be, what happens next?
You're watching KTV Channel 7 Omaha. More complete coverage.
Omaha's new mayor says he is up to the challenge after winning by less than 1,500 votes.
Despite the lack of sleep, he said now, with the election over, it's time to get ready for the task at hand. So today,
we have the results, we have a new mayor, and he is in a position to set the agenda by use of his position and what he has to say. So that's what he does. And that's really what all elected officials in some capacity do with their position. They use their position to set an agenda. The media follow, record, go to, whether it's videotaping or taking notes, and report on what occurred, what they had to say. But more often than not, short of some spectacular story that we don't know about yet, it will then play a prominent role in the newscast.
We still have to continue as a great city. We still have to set the framework for the future.
Now, Suttle says his first order of business is getting Omaha's financial house in order. He says once the economy...
And that's done for a reason. It's done on purpose. We all know that it's being done. As media representatives, we know that while we might not call it agenda setting, we know that to a certain extent we're being used by the elected official in whatever position they're in, by just the virtue of them calling a news conference. We may not even want to go. And I've had this discussion with reporters. But we feel obligated to go because we know that if we don't, we might be the only television station not there, and our competitors are there. And what if he or she says something and we weren't there to capture it?
I've heard of Keys to the City. This is the
Keys to the Office.
So that'll be the big story at 6, just detailing that. Right now, Adrian said he's waiting.
The choice of what is covered can represent a bias. So you do have to take a step back and look at how you're covering a story, and if you're selecting a good balance of coverage, particularly when there are many sides to an issue or you're dealing with politics. So you have to be careful.
Tonight on Fox 4 News at 5, shocking allegations as an 11-year-old girl says she was raped at Metro Elementary School.
That is the 5 p.m. topic, one of them.
Those pre-show teases and the promos during the evening can be equated more to a headline you would see in a newspaper than to the actual story itself.
The main goal of the topical is to drive our audience from the lead-in shows into our newscast, to retain the most people that we can get from those shows, and the casual viewer who's walking by their TV and just sees something compelling. Hopefully we can get those people to come back at 5 and watch our show.
You'll notice that these promos, they run during prime time, and so if you're watching that particular station, you'll get hooked to them, but not everyone watches your station. And so you'll have these, especially in sweeps months, the promotions start early, just hoping to catch you the one time you're watching us and to plant the seed that you'll come back and watch our newscast next week when we start the series.
Police on the Avenger, staking out bombs.
You write them in such a way to attract an audience, and it's interesting the choice of words when you write those promos or how it's perceived by the viewer. Essentially, you're telling the viewer, you've got to see this.
Plus, gas prices on the move.
Not a commanding voice, you've got to see it, but you're not going to believe it. We've got this video, you've got to see it. Almost as if, going back to the analogy, two friends on the sidewalk saying, did you hear about this? That's the kind of tone, that's the kind of delivery, the kind of writing that you want in those promos. And what you are saying to them, and often specifically, is, you want more about this story? Watch us at 10 o'clock.
See how they're training to patrol the streets. That's tonight on Fox 4 News at 10.
And it airs 2 to 3 times. Each spot will air 2 to 3 times.
You might be writing a promo and the story hasn't even been written yet. You have to go to the reporter and say, okay, so now you're doing this story about this factory closing. What can you tell me about the story? And you're actually interviewing the reporter about the story that they have yet to write. And you're hopeful that the story ends up the way that they're describing it.
Cops are telling me now that there is a difference between special needs and special ed, and we should say and I'll change it, that they're in a special needs class. They also told me a couple of other new things. They said they were over there this afternoon, and the room where this allegedly happened, you can't lock the door, and the girl had claimed in her statement that the door had been locked. So he says we're finding some inconsistencies in the preliminary investigation.
You take the S off of news, and that describes it. It's what's new.
She's got a credibility issue, but she's a special needs. She's a special needs student. So that's why I think it's important to say she's a special needs student, because there could be an issue with how she communicates, what she understands, that sort of thing. Story's written and it's being edited right next to me. assault happen, but police say we're about done. We're just getting ready, just finishing up the loose ends. We're gonna head out to do a live shot.
So I was a news producer prior to getting into teaching.
Did you ever think of yourself as someone who was setting the agenda for your viewing audience or anything?
I would say no. I didn't put it in those terms. The way I would explain it to others and to myself was, what is the most important story of the day? What is it that people would be talking about if they just heard about it? That's your lead.
From the station that's working for you, you're watching Fox 4 News at 5.
Welcome on this Wednesday. I'm John Holt.
And I'm Susan Hyland. A 10-year-old girl says that she was raped at school by another student. Fox 4's John Pepitone live at Children's Mercy Hospital. John?
That's right, Susan. The girl's guardian tells Fox 4 News that both the victim and the boy accused are both special needs students.
Don't get caught up in the visual.
When the teacher returned to the room, the girl says she told him what happened, but the teacher took no action.
Well, they're not telling you what to think, but they're telling you what to think about. And that's what agenda setting is all about. So listen for the content. Listen for the news. Pay attention to the news, not how it's gift wrapped for you.
Police say graffiti is a sign of crime. That's why Operation Brightside works to get rid of graffiti the second it goes up.
Well, television news is what's going on in the community, what people are interested in.
A candidate for change, one who spent a lot of one-on-one time with constituents in Kansas City.
We aren't told how to cover the news. We're not talk radio, we're not commentators, we're just reporting. Here's what we've learned today. Here, hopefully, are both sides. And now it's up to you to make a decision.
Sticking up a good 3 inches, just waiting to mangle someone's tire.
We aren't here to tell people what to think. We're here to tell people what's going on, what the facts are, in the best way we possibly can.
He is 6 feet from pickups, cars, and semis, doing 70+ miles per hour.
You can't measure it. You can't put numbers to it. No, it's just your gut.
It's all about art and creativity. That's the American way.
But this shortcut took a dangerous turn when authorities say the 15-year-old driver lost control of his Jeep.
People are always predicting that we're on our last leg. And the fact of the matter is we're far from it, and we may be changing, and we may have a business down the road that none of us recognize today. But I think what we're going to see is that we'll have more news rather than less when it all shakes out.
It's not when the gate's fully down that you have to stop. It's as soon as the lights are activated.
Television is just a mechanism of getting that information to the public. So it's no different than any other kind of news. It's the way you do it, it's the way you deliver it.